Hey guys, so today is the second installment in the How to Freehand series. In this series, I teach you guys how to basically improve your drawing skills when it comes to freehanding your nail art. In the first video, I introduced you to your tools and how to use them, how to become more comfortable, and now we are going to basically master our line work. Now the first way to do that is to pick the perfect tools. Now the brush that I'm going to be using today is the Presto Art number 11 brush, and this is a great liner brush for doing long lines. I got this brush from Ocean Nail Supply, and you can also get the art gel that I'm using, which is the Nail Swag. I think it's the number 3. It's the blue one, so you can't really mess it up. Just figure out which one's blue. And the second step in getting perfect lines is not only picking the right tool or the right brush, but also loading your brush correctly. So you see that I am basically really working it into the bristles, because the difference between using an art gel brush and using a regular brush that comes out of a bottle of polish is that the bristles are not flooded. It hasn't been sitting in that color for a long period of time. So you'll see that with that application, I got a really even coat, which will mean fluid lines. So first we're going to start by anchoring your pinky. That is extremely important because it will keep your hand steady. I'm just going to start at the top of my nail and drag it all the way down. Now, as I mentioned, you can give yourself markers. So in order to do that, we're going to space out our lines first. So using the first line that I drew as a reference point, I'm just going to add a little tick mark to where I want to put the remaining amount of lines. And I'm going to do the beginning and the end, so the top and bottom, but you can also put a marker in the middle if that would help you. Now, when I draw these lines, I basically hold my brush perpendicular to the line I've already drawn. So what this means is that I am not actually looking at the line that I drew, and I'm not even looking at the line that I'm about to draw. What I'm really looking at is the space in between. So as long as I'm focusing on the negative space, my hand doesn't seem to move because I'm looking at the spacing and not the line itself. So especially when you're doing symmetrical patterns or grids like this one, your spacing will be very important. And that is because, as you can see, when I turn the nail straight, it doesn't really look like these lines are even, but as I turn the nail, the perspective changes and you realize that they are. So that is the big difference between working on a flat surface and then moving on to a curved nail. So to do the horizontal lines, I'm just going to do a short line to give myself perspective, and then you can figure out how large you want your boxes or rectangles. The good part about breaking up the line is that you can use it to cheat. Now you see that I'm hovering my brush until it matches the line that I've already drawn. So that means that when I'm ready to press my brush down, it will meet up with the line I've already drawn perfectly. See? Now remember, you can draw guidelines just like we did with the vertical lines, but eventually with practice you will be able to ignore that step altogether and just go completely freehand. Now another tip for drawing perfect lines, which you may have noticed already, is that instead of moving my hand, sometimes I will just move my nail. Now right here, it's not really necessary because I've already broken up the lines into short strokes, so I'm really not moving very far. But if I were, I would just place my brush down, and instead of moving my hand, I could start to rotate the nail. And that's actually the exact technique that I'm going to use when I do the diagonal lines. Now, as I've mentioned before in a previous video explaining the importance of using art gel is great for doing detail work because you don't have to flash cure in between every few strokes. With this, you've seen that I've done the vertical and horizontal lines without having to cure. So now I'm going to do that, and then we can move on. Now to put in your lines, all you have to do is follow your grid. So you'll want to draw a 45-degree angle from the top left corner to the bottom right corner of each square. You can do that in short strokes like I am right now, and this is a good beginner way to do it. However, it can be a little bit challenging to make sure that your line weight or line quality is continuous, meaning they're all the same width. Or, as I mentioned before, you can do one long fluid stroke by starting at the beginning and then just rotating the nail until you finish the line. Just remember, whatever you decide to do, always do it the same way. As I mentioned in the first video, practicing will make you better and better. But the easiest way to get there is by forming habits, and in order to form a habit, you have to do it the same way every time. Otherwise, you break the pattern. Now, even though you don't see me do it in this video, I am loading my brush quite frequently. The thinner the brush, the fewer the bristles, meaning the less product it can hold. But don't worry, the more you practice, the better you'll be able to gauge how much product to put on your brush initially, so you don't have to keep going back and forth. So once you finished your lines, you can now go in the opposite direction, again meeting a 45-degree angle on all of your squares. Now, if you have somehow watched this entire video and not seen part 1, I highly recommend that you click right here and go do that right now. And if you have in fact done the exercises from part 1, then I do suggest that you try this one next. I know it may seem intimidating at first, but you can adjust it to your skill level. If you want, you can start off with just the squares and then eventually work up to the diagonal lines. Do this over and over again until you become really comfortable with it. Then, doing your curved lines will become extremely easy, which we're going to be going over in next week's video. Or if you'd like to see the koi fish tutorial that I posted on Instagram today, first, let me know in the comments. Bye guys!